Hello everyone, welcome to the next session on SAP Fiori Launchpad training and Web IDE training. In the last class, we talked about enhancements in detail, how to enhance a standard Fiori application. We took a used case and we saw how to achieve that used case. In today's session, I will explain about creating a custom Fiori app from scratch using XML views. So whenever you get a requirement to create a custom Fiori app in your company, what is that which you should always start with, and how you should proceed with enhancement of your application, and then further on deploying and sharing the project with multiple developers, because over a period of time you will not be the one who will alone work on a project. There will be multiple developers working on the same project, and hence there is a requirement for synchronizing all the code base which is being touched by multiple developers. So we'll talk about Git repository, of course. So let's get started. So first of all, whenever you want to build a new SAP UI5 Fiori application project, you should always think about standards. We already know about following standards. This is the most important thing which you all must consider when you're starting a custom Fiori app. For example, if you just go with a freestyle application, you may not have XML views created. Then you are actually missing the standards. So some of the common standards which you always try to target with your custom Fiori app should be these followings. The views has to be XML views. Yeah, all the views which you're developing are XML views to properly follow the MVC principles. You must have to have component.js file. That's very important because otherwise you cannot integrate it with the Fiori Launchpad. You must have manifest.json file because it includes the service information. And tomorrow, if your service changes, you can really go back and change the service URL into manifest.json, and then accordingly it will adapt automatically. The next important thing is it's always good to have the mock server. We saw the implementation for mock server. So the mock server will help you to mock the data. So if at all the backend service is not responding, you can still go ahead and test your application. So it's a good to have thing. The last very important thing is design principles. All the design principles has to be followed properly. So there are lots of design principles which you must have to follow when it comes to standard Fiori apps. Similar thing should also apply to your custom Fiori app. Like your app has to be responsive. And how will that happen? When you follow Fiori design principles. But many of us don't even have a depth knowledge of Fiori design principles. Some of these principles which I will just like to highlight is UI5 version. Yeah, we should use router. We should make sure that we are using the right libraries so that it won't have a mismatch in the server component and the library which you have it here. It should follow the standardized look and feel, which is equivalent to your templates. So if you look at any standard Fiori apps, what SAP did, they have created templates for you to make ease of your development done, which is more closer to standard Fiori apps. So if you are developing a custom Fiori app, you should always make use of these templates, because then you are providing a user experience which is close to standard, and user will not feel any difference, significant difference in your app. This was the biggest challenge in old UI technologies what SAP offered. Everybody used to started developing their apps on their own style, which has created a dilemma for end user. The moment you look at an app, it is confusing because one app behave differently and another behave completely differently. So you always follow standard design patterns, standard design principles, the templates, and that's what your web IDE really does for you. It helps you to use templates. and which fulfills all the above said standards as well, because the moment you generate a custom Fiori app from the template, it fulfills all your need. And then you can get started with the modification. So always the golden rule for the custom Fiori app development, guys, you should always get started with a project using template. And you must have to have your OData service, or if not, you must have to have the metadata for OData service available. If you have that available, you can get started with an application from template and test it without really getting the data from the backend also, because if your backend doesn't have a data, it's not supplying, you can still use mock server to get such data. So let's have a look at creating a fresh application in the system by making use of a standard Fiori OData, a standard OData service provided by SAP for developers. So we'll go back to our front-end system, and here I've already activated one OData service for developer. So this service comes out of the box. It's available in almost every SAP system. You just got to search for a star EPM star. EPM stands for Enterprise Procurement Model, and you will see there will be a service for developer scenario. You can see here EPM developer scenarios SRV. I've activated this service. This has very simple and common data models like product, sales order, purchase order, yeah, all these basic business partner, the basic entity sets which anybody can understand irrespective of whatever area they are working with. Very simple data model. So I've activated this. Let's have a look at the service now. So I just say call browser and it launches the system for me, and let me just quickly go back and enter my user. So my user is OCSF user 10. And thanks to Bobby for providing this user for practice so that I can show you some advanced scenarios maybe in the next class, like workflow integration with Fiori. So you can see this is the service. It has pretty simple data entity sets like products, sales order header, sales product categories, and sales order item and customers. So maybe we will use products and look at some data for products in the JSON format. Let me just put the format as JSON and show you the JSON data. Now it doesn't really look so nice, so we will quickly add the JSON viewer add-on to our Chrome browser so that we can get a nice formatted JSON output into the browser. So let me add this add-on to my Chrome browser. Adding this extension point would really help you to visualize the JSON better. And now I just refresh one more time, and you can see there are this product information which is now available. So now it's our requirement now to create a application which displays the product data. And the best way to do that is whenever you want to create an application which is typically used to display the business entity data, the business object data, always use master detail template. Okay, master detail. And whenever there is a need for user to take an activity to be performed, use worklist type application, worklist template. And if you have some kind of data which includes pictures, you can use master detail with photo. This type of templates you can really use in Web IDE. Now, as you also know, I have already shown you how to check the version of your SAP UI5 in the server. So you can always go back to your gateway server and really check the version of SAP UI5 into that using SICF transaction, and there you will find a service called UI2 service. Just search for this. You can see here it is. Sorry, maybe this one, and just say right click and say test the service. Yeah, so oops, some problem. Maybe I think it was a different one. we supposed to get the version of SAP UI5 installed in the system. No, this is one is not responding. I think it was this one. Or maybe you can look at any Fiori app and do Control Alt Shift P. It will show you the version for which is installed in the server for SAP Fiori. Yeah. So with that you'll get to know. But now our main intention is to create a custom Fiori app which we can modify and adjust according to the need on top of the service which we have it here. An end-to-end development scenario for custom Fiori app using XML view is what we need to look at. Yeah. Yes, this service is not taking data from EKKO, EKPO, VBAC and VBAP tables. It is having some demo tables created. It's purely for the training purpose what SAP delivered. So it is not consuming the data from EKKO, EKPO. For EKKO, EKPO, you need to look at the purchase order or sales order approval apps, and also the sales order and purchase order create apps, and find out the OData service from SAP Fiori library. Yeah, SAP Fiori library which we looked at, and there you will find the information for those apps, what services are being used. Those services would definitely give you the data from EKKO and EKPO. But this one what you see here is purely for training purpose, and they have completely different table design, which is not the one which is used for real-time purchase order, sales order data. Yeah, but that shouldn't matter for you, because we are now more focusing on the UI development using service rather than being, concentrated on a particular functionality. Yeah. So what I will do is I just go back to Web IDE and try to create a new custom project. Yeah, new custom Fiori project. So right click here and say new project from template, and now we just choose master detail application, and right now just select the latest version of SAP UI5 library, which is 1.32. Click on next. Let's give the name custom Fiori app, or see custom Fiori app. Click on next, and now here you can see it has automatically selected only one destination which is available, and I'm going to choose my EPM service. So let me just search for EPM, and here you can see the developer scenario service for EPM. I choose next. It pulls in all the metadata for the service from the system and now ask me to enter the details. So let me just say products app, and I just name this as my company name. Let's say IBM. That's my namespace, and in that I'm working for a training department. So I say TPM, training and placement management. So IBM.tpm is the namespace I've given. So sample demo app for custom needs, and we choose the entity type. So as you can see here, this is your OData service, and you can also look at the definition of the service, which is nothing but your service document, and it has these many entity sets, only 5. So one which we are interested in the products entity set, so you can really go back and look at the metadata of the service. So say $metadata, press enter, and this is the metadata of the service. So now typically, let's say you are not the one who is working with gateway, okay, or you don't have an access to the service, and there is a team which has been formed now, and the functional guys and the business is really pressurizing you to give some sample Fiori app, but the OData guy, the OData team is not really giving you the OData service. So what you can really do is you can go back and look at this service which is already there in the system and take its metadata. So, or you can ask your OData team to provide at least the metadata. If the functionality is also not ready, they can really create the metadata and give it to you, right? With that, you can still go ahead and create your application. Okay, so that is what is important. You just need metadata to get started creating a Fiori app. And then since you're using SAP Fiori template, it also generates a mock server with the mock data. So that will be used to display the data on the screen. So your job will not be halted because of the service development. You just need the metadata, and if they stick to that metadata and develop the service in the future, there is literally zero effort integrating both the things together. Yeah. Now you can see here this service is created, and this service is showing up some properties for every entity set here. So if you just come down, you can see there is this product entity type, and that then it has a products entity set which includes these properties like category name, product ID, category, name of the product, short description, long description. It has lots of properties. So we are now going to just choose this entity set as products, and let's say collection ID is product ID, and the type of the product is short description. I want to display the title, and then the price of the product I want to display, and then currency code. So that's what I want to display in the master section. Then in the line item section, in the details section, I can leave it right now empty because I want to enhance it later. Yeah. So I say next and say finish. So that's it. It has got created a nice project with all the fulfilling all the standards. So this effort is saved by Web IDE. So if you remember guys, in our last course, we created all these artifacts manually, step by step. But here, this entire effort is being saved by Web IDE following all the standards. And if you really look at, it's really a true responsive Fiori app which it gives you, because you don't have to focus more on styles, design, following the right folder structure, following the standards like you should have manifest, router for navigation, component JS, all the different manifest entries, all these things, I18N of course for translation purpose, mock server for mocking the data if you don't have your service ready, and also the formatters. If you remember the formatter code which we did in the last course, formatters are also there. A lot of functionality comes out of the box like unit testing, and then you get also the functionalities like sorting, filtering, all these things in the master section. You do get it along with it, and all the views which you look at are XML views. Yeah, so that's a great advantage of using SAP Web IDE to generate custom Fiori apps. So it's always a good start. Whenever I get some assignment guys for creating a custom Fiori app, I always go with this technique. I always create an app with the SAP Web IDE template, and then I adapt as per my need. So nobody can question me that why you have not followed the standard. Because if you start following standard and start putting one by one file manually, it is going to take a lot of time. You will not be able to finish it faster. So it's always practice, a practice which you should follow, that you always generate the code from the SAP Web IDE. And now it's up to you if your company is using Eclipse. So just right click here and download this project and import it into Eclipse, and then you can also use Eclipse for the development. So Web IDE is anyways free. We saw how to set up Web IDE in local system and connect over it and just get started. So it's absolutely free, so you can, and or you can also make use of Web IDE because it's really nice tool to keep you connected with your gateway system, and you really don't have to worry about the cross origin resource sharing issues as well, which we saw in the last course. And we use some kind of proxy in Eclipse to connect to the gateway system. Yeah, so it has a seamless integration with gateway systems as well. And of course, you saw the advantage of using Web IDE, that it gives you nice extensibility pane for you to do enhancements. So this is the right practice and right way to get started. Once it's created, always make a first test to it. You have to make a test. That's always a good practice. So say run, and you can just say run configuration you can define, and then you can say I want to just run my component with the server. Yeah, and say save and run, and now it will start the application, and you can see it's asking me the username and password. So I just enter the username. So what was the username? Let me just go and check. So it's OCSF user 10. And I enter the password, and you can see this loading indicators and stuff like that. All of that, it's really managing on its own. There is an error coming, internal server error. I don't know why it's coming. Really not sure. So you can see this loading indicator. All these things are well managed. Everything is out of the box. You get it immediately. You don't really need to worry about it. And now there's some problem. Sorry, technical error occurred. Please try again later. Status code 500. Operation sort by description is not okay. So you can see here this operation sort by short description is not supported by entity type. So basically what it's trying to do, the standard Fiori which got generated is trying to sort the application, sort the products based on the short description, and this feature for sorting the data into the server side is not supported by our OData service. So if I'll show you the OData service over here, so you can see this is my OData service. I click on service implementation, and then I would like to go and open up the service project. So where is my service project? It's this one. We can also go from here directly to the service project. Is it not? Okay, maybe we just take this project name and then search in SAPBW to open up this project. Okay, it's not there. Let me search for EPM star, and yes, I think I do have this one over here. This is the service project name, and you can see in this is our product entity type. And if I just go inside to the properties, you can see sortable. Yeah, so the OData service only supports the sorting based on product ID and the product name and based on price. There are no other support provided by this OData service. By looking at its metadata for the product entity type, I can see there's no support provided for sorting for based on the short description. Hence, there is an error coming in generated project. Yeah, so no worries, we can really fix it now. We don't have to go for regeneration. We can simply go back and check where the sorting is done in which view and then correct this issue. So let's go back to Web IDE, expand the view folder. You'll see all the views and controllers, all the views inside this. And of course, maybe the sorting is being done on the master section. So let me just come to the master section and look at where exactly we have the list control. So here you can see the list control they've done in the generated code. In the master section, that's the major part of the master section, the list control. And there has to be an option where they mention that on what basis they are really doing the sorting. So can anybody tell me where exactly do you see which property of your binding which explains something about sorting? Anybody in this line number? Which line number do you see in the list control binding that they're actually doing a sorting based on some property? Can anybody guess in this XML view? Which line number? 37? Yeah, you're right. So you can see here there is a sorter which has been applied on the binding. So they are just doing in binding with items. So if you remember in the last course we saw JavaScript views where we do bind items or bind aggregation with items, and then in that we have given path, and path will be the path of your entity set. So that's exactly in the XML format what they're doing here. Additionally, they are also putting the sorter, and here they're putting the property name based on which it is being sorted. But as we saw, the OData service doesn't really provide a support for sorting based on short description. It provides based on name. So I just change it to name, save this after changing it, and come back and refresh the page. Now Deepa has a question. If it is not specified in the metadata of the service, how can we find checking the code of the service implementation? Yes, you can always go to DPC extension class and look at it, but ideal practice is you have to look at metadata. Now, if you see the metadata, you actually will find a lot of information. So see, for the name property, you see SAP-sortable. It's false. Yeah. So here you can see sortable property value. With this, you can gauge it. You have to always go back and look at the metadata document of the service. With that, you will really gauge it. And you see, now the moment I change this, it started working. So that is what out of the box you've got. You got almost entire app which is ready, which is capable of displaying the products in a standard way in a master detail application with XML views and all the standards with special functionalities. What you have here is, as you can see here, this option for sorting. You've got, you can really sort based on these properties. You've got an option based on group. You can group them, and then you can also search. So if I just say laptop, I'm not sure whether laptop is there. No, so maybe I just say ultra and search for the products and nothing. Maybe just I just search for high, and you can see it just includes all the products which has high into it. Yeah, so that's how you can really do it. Now my, this is my basic thing which got ready. My base, my fundamental, my foundation for the building is ready out of the box. It's just like when you want to build the foundation for the building, you got to spend a lot of time. Now here the time is saved. You have got the foundation purchased from somewhere where it was already there, and it is got it for you. That's the power of web id. It comes, but now it's up to you. Your experience of the previous course will apply to this to make changes to it. So let's say my user say I want to display more details about this product over here in the master section. Like I want to display the, maybe the attribute, more attribute where it displays me some dimension of the product, or maybe the product ID is not visible right now. So I would like to know the product ID to be displayed over here. So we can go back and look at our XML view and see where we can really make the change. So here you use your list control, and you can see in the list control we are doing the binding. At the same time, we have lots of properties used over here. So if you just come down, you can see the items of the list, and each item will be of type object list item, and there is a property called title, number unit. So these properties are already available. Now going back to the previous course, let's go back and check the SAP UI5 Explored for Fiori. So I'll just go for SAP UI5 Explored and look at what are all the other properties an object list item can have. Yeah, an object list item can really have to enhance the list on the left hand side. So I come back here and just search for list control, just come down, or maybe I just search for object list item. Here it is. Just choose this, and you can see you've got aggregations, and it is called attributes. In that you can give more attributes about the thing, and you can see 0 to n, which means you can give multiple attributes for every object list item. So let's use this attributes aggregation. So how do you do it in XML view? So this is your items, and then you have object list items, and inside each object list item, what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna say attributes. You can also do control space, and you can see it really shows you what really you can do it in this. So this way, you know, it's really helpful in SAP Web IDE as compared to Eclipse. You can really do a lot more things. So now that's my aggregation. You can see I'm putting inside the object list item these attributes because it's an aggregation of object list item, and each attribute will be of type what? Each attribute is of type object attribute. Let's click on object attribute class and look at its properties. So you can see there is a text property for each object attribute. So let's add an object attribute inside this attributes. You can also press control space, and you see it shows you all the possible inputs. So object attribute, double click, and you remember we have seen the text property, and let's do the binding here. So we got to now do the binding. So let's do the binding in this. So now you all remember how the binding really helps you. So you can see here we are binding with short description, the price property, the currency code. So I'm just gonna do the binding with product ID. So but for that I need to go back and check my OData service, which is the property for product, which gives me the product ID. So here it is. It's case sensitive. So it's product ID. Always copy from here and just put it in this. So object attribute I've added under the attributes, which is an aggregation of object list item in XML view. Save this, come back and refresh your page. Let's see what happens now. Okay, there's an error again, but yes, you can see now you've got this this HT-1007. That's exactly your product ID, which is now being visible to you on the right hand side. So that way you can add more and more object attributes to it. Let's try to also add a status. So we go back to our SDK object list item and see if there's something called status. Yes, we have something called first status aggregation. Again, it only accepts one object, 0 to 1. Each object is of type object status. So let's do this in our web IDE now. So now we come back again. There is a aggregation called first status, and you see web IDE really helps you to do that. And inside this first status you have object status. Yeah, so it's so smart. And then let's see the properties for that. Control space you can make, and you can see all the properties for the object status. So you have a text property which for the object status, so you can do the binding for this here. And let's look at this one. So in this we will see if we can find the status for the product. I don't know if it is there or not, some status. No, there's nothing called status property for product. So maybe we will use something else. Let's use supplier name in the status. Fine, that's cool. So you can use supplier name and just put here supplier name. Yeah, then the binding. Save this. Let's come back and look at the response. We should get the supplier name in the object status of every product. You can see, yes, supplier name is being visible for every product. So you see earlier when WebID really created this, it was pretty a crude list, but I have enhanced it by adding more control to it, and all the knowledge which you have in the first course really applies here to build it. Yeah. Now if you are not comfortable too much with the coding and you feel it's very erroneous technique to really code it, WebID also offers us a nice layout editor with which you can really build quickly things and faster. Yeah, so how can you really achieve that? So let's come back to WebID, and now this time I would like to enhance our detail view. So I come to this detail view, double click here and understand the XML structure. So this is a detail view. It includes object header on the top. Yeah, so if you look at here, this is the object header area on the top for this, and below that you contain these two things. Can anybody tell me from the previous course what are all these things called? Anybody? What these things are known as? What type of control they are? In the previous course we talked about them. Perfect. They're called icon tab filters. So now if you just come down, you see there's an icon tab bar, and each icon tab bar contains an item segregation which includes icon tab filter. So XML views are comparatively easier to understand because they are more declarative. They don't have, processing logic into it. They are barely very simple. Whatever you declare here, it gets created. As simple as that. So it's more like declaration here, not like processing something. It's not conditional. It is not having imperative logic like you can do it in JavaScript. which is more complex. So XML views are more um, you know simple in nature. They are more like declarative, so whatever you're declaring is getting created. Of course you need to be little cautious about properties of every control, but it's more declarative. So you can see there are two icon tab filters into it, and then uh, in each icon tab filter we probably right now don't have anything into it, right? So you can see there's nothing being displayed inside this icon tab filters at this point of time. So now my requirement is to first of all bring some title for this first icon tab filter. So let me do that. So I can come here, or you can see there's already a tooltip and it's taking from an I18N model, and the name of the tooltip for this is detail icon tab bar info. So I copy this, go to my I18N folder and just try to find out where it is. So just search for it and you can see here you already found this. So your customer don't want info to be the title or to be the tooltip for that icon tab filter, so you can really change it. So I can say more information. Yeah, so this way you can really change it. So you see out of the box you get all these things. So your I18N model is also there, it's the text file is also there. You just got to go and change it. It's so easy. Yeah, now if I can come back, refresh and show you the tooltip for the first icon tab filter, you will see it will display you the required information. So let me just select, come here and see more information. It got changed from more info to more information. Yeah, so that's how you can really look at the XML view and change things, whether it's related to text, whether it's related to binding. You can really do a lot. Now if you also come back and look at here, you see there's a binding done with this short description, this the currency code, the price property, and they're all coming from your product only. You see the currency code, where is it? Here is the currency code, the price, price property, the product ID, all these properties coming from your OData service as an attribute itself, right? So what we can do is we can create some input fields or probably some display fields inside the first icon tab filter and display this more data, like let's say dimension of the product. So how can I do it? One way is I go inside, I use its aggregation called content. So let me right now show you just a simple example. I just use content aggregation of this icon tab filter and put a control. So let me just put a switch control right now just to show you how we can really add more code to the XML view. And you can see once I just choose it, you can see this switch has been added to the icon tab filter. This is one way you manually edit the things. Another way is you just delete this, not really needed, save this, right click on your view and say open with layout editor. Yeah, so this is more like a layout editor. You don't need to write down the code. So if you're not comfortable coding XML views, you can always make use of this. But yes, this doesn't really support deep deep level controls, and it only supports certain controls and it has some limitations. And also with my experience, it's not really so stable. Yeah, it's not really so stable, but yes, it's a good option to get started with if you're not really you want to save some time and don't want to generate or write the code, XML code, which is more error prone. Yeah, so you can use this, and now I can come here and search for simple form. Let's say I want to add, so you see simple form here. I just drag it and drop it inside, and you can see it's created um, it's created some label and input fields for me, and I can just come and quickly change these properties. So it's more like layout editor in WebDin Pro. Yeah, WebDin Pro, those who have worked with, there are two tabs. Every view contains something called layout and view controller. So that's exactly this is. So here you have drag and drop, quick easy way to create controls much faster and add them accordingly. So now I can just go ahead and change this title to maybe just say dimension details. Okay, one second. say product dimension, and you can see emphasize is false. If I make it true, you can really see on the left what difference it really makes. You can also do an F4 to attach an icon. So maybe I just choose here an icon dimension. Yeah, so you can use this, click on OK. So this way it's easy. You don't really need to write down all the XML code. It's getting generated behind the scenes. Yeah. And now I want a label. So let me just say width property, and then I have an input field. For this input field, I want to say this input field should not take any input from user. Yeah, so only it should be in disabled format. It should be a display only input field. So you can see here you can really control many properties. So type is text. You can also control if type can be in number, email. So all the validation will also take place accordingly. Yeah, for if user enters something wrong, and then you can just come up and see if there is an enabled property available here. Editable, yeah, editable is true. I make it false. So now this input field will not display, will not be able to edit the data. Let's delete this input field, the one which is below this. I select and delete. So I just have width and an input field, then the label, second label, and I just change this one to, let's say, uh, depth of the product. And then again for this as well, I'll say um, for this particular, okay, so that's a label. And for the next input field next to it, I want to just make it again just a display only. So editable equals to false is what I will make it. So this way, you know, it's easier for you to code, easier for you to create stuff. Yeah. So that's much easier for you to create the controls, and all the code related to XML gets generated internally. Yeah. It gets generated completely. So that's about it. And let's just make it to false. Yeah. Now comes to binding. So it has to also display the data, right? So that data will not be displayed automatically. You got to do some binding for this control, then only the data will be displayed. Yeah. So let's select the control once again, the input control which we have. It's little difficult to, you know, also make a selection here because it's little buggy. You know, it's not that mature yet, this type of layout editor. But yes, it's a good start. Over a period of time, SAP will also probably improve this and you're going to get better results. So let's do the binding now. So you can see this nice button over here. So just click on this. Um, I hope it should show something to create the binding. It's not. Maybe I just choose here the data set. Okay, there's no data set defined and I can't even choose the binding as well. So maybe for that I need to manually do the binding. So what I do is I switch now. I first save my changes. And now I quickly right click and again switch to the XML view editor. So I say right click and say open with, and this time I say code editor. So in this now you can see the code for this icon tab filter got created with a simple form. Yeah, it has got created a simple responsive form, and now you have all your properties also added here. Let's add the value property, and I'm just going to create the binding. It's going to be again a relative binding. So let's do that and go to our OData service one more time. And is there any property? Yes, dimension width is there. So let's use this dimension width, put it here, and then we can also put space, another property, which is now the dimension unit. Yeah, so this one I will put. So two properties together I'm just binding. So dimension width and unit, both of these things. And similarly to that, next input field you have this dimension depth and the dimension unit. Save this, we're done. Let's come back and look at the response. So you should now get two nice input fields, display input fields displaying the data of the product along with the width as well as the depth. You can see, yes, so you see 0.41 m, 0.19 m is the depth for this product. So, and it's really changing the moment I am making the selection. There is an error coming when we are loading the page. Let me see why it's coming. So I think it's coming because of router. So you can see, sorry, a technical error occurred. Maybe let's look at the reason. Now you see, this is also a nice feature which you get, error handling. When you generate the code from SAP Web IDE, the standard error handling for any OData is also done. Yeah. So if your OData tomorrow not working, there is a problem. All that things, these things will be managed. As you see, the product set get entity method is not implemented. That's why this error is coming. Okay. That is the reason why this error is coming. You see, it's giving you the gateway. So anything fails in the server side also, it tells you, see, products get entity method is not implemented. That's why this error is coming. So you can ignore it. We can just do a selection and you see, at least it's not calling the get set because it is just getting all the products and buffering it. And then from that buffer, it's populating the right side data. Yeah. So this way you can really change it using layout editor. I come back and now I would like to add an add button. So let me come to the master view, right click here. I want to add a new button. So I say right click, open with layout editor, and just got to add a new button over here. See, there are some more buttons, but I'm just going to add a new button over there. You can also make a copy of an existing control, right click, make a copy, and just do a paste right there itself. Yeah, so this will also help you to enhance the code quite swiftly. Yeah, but again, my experience says I'm more comfortable in writing the XML code because I also typically go back to my SDK, the Fiori SDK, and from there I copy paste the code because I know what I'm doing, and there's nothing wrong in doing copy paste. So I can easily go to my SDK. There are lots of examples over there. I can simply go to those samples. I make a copy of the code. It's ready made available, tested already with SAP, and then I just go inside. Let me show you. So let's say this is a list. I want to construct this. I just flip it and I would get all the XML code. You see, all the XML code for the entire view. I make a copy of this and paste it into my web IDE, and according to that it will adapt itself. So you see, the copy didn't work, I think. Yeah, copy didn't work, so maybe we just add a button. So I just drag the button and drop it in the toolbar. Can we add it to the toolbar? No, I'm not able to add it to the toolbar, so maybe I got to go and add it manually itself, guys. You see, it's not really working. It's not able to add that button to the toolbar, so maybe let's switch to the XML based editor for the master as well. Open with code editor, and now we just come down and you see here we have the groups, and let's see the button. Here we have a filter button. Next to that I want to add new button. So this is a filter button. Make a copy of this. Same way you can add a new button and just give an ID. Let's say maybe add new, and I just say on add new. So that's my action. Whenever user click on this, this is what should happen. We can also just quickly add an icon for this. SAP-icon ://add, and I can also give, oops, I'm used to JavaScript views, so just put a comma. Instead of that, you should just use tooltip. Save this. So we're done. You can see it's created. Let's come back and test. Do you get an add button in the bottom of the toolbar? No, it's not coming. There is some problem. I think maybe I've done some mess. Yes, tooltip typo. Let's come back and check. That's why an error occurred also. Do we get the button? No, we still did not get the button. There may be some problem. Let me just remove this tooltip from here and try now. Filter action. See guys, the problem is I think this filter action, it should not be filter action. Let me just check semantic, and I think it should be some more print action. You can see some default action types are there. So it has to be some more, something called custom action or save action, share action, semantic control, semantic page, add action. You see, I choose this add action now, and you see it generated all the code. Wow, great. So I can see I have an ID, I have visible is true, enabled is true. There are a lot of things it is generated. I don't need all of them. I just use on add new, and probably the tooltip is what I would need. And for tooltip you can see it has added this object for the tooltip. Yeah, so tooltip is actually an object for this type of control. It's not a simple property, it's an aggregation. So I would just need tooltip, so I just remove rest of the things, and you see SAP UI core tooltip base class. I think we should have a tooltip property. I'm not sure. No. Do we have a text property inside? No. Tooltip base. There's no property. Mhm. I think I can directly type in here add new, but that's not fair. That's not right, I think. Let's go back and check the documentation for tooltip control. So I come back here and search for tooltip. It's not showing, maybe, I'm not sure. So maybe just try to give the text property for tooltip and we'll see. Save this. Let's come back and refresh the page. You see this loading indicator, Fiori loading indicator, all these things comes out of the box when you use standard Fiori templates. Now these things would have taken a lot of time for you to code, and then again you need to build lots of expertise for that to achieve. Yeah, which these things really you can achieve much faster with generating the code from Fiori templates. Yeah, it's taking time, so let it load. And that what I'm now going to do next is on click of that add button, I'm going to launch a completely different view. So now I showed you enhancing a view by writing the code. I showed you changing a view by using layout editor. I saw adding the master view by adding something new. And now on click of that button, I want to launch a completely different view. So you all know that whenever we want to launch a completely different view from like from one view to another view, we got to make use of navigation. And navigation is what happens in SAP Fiori app by router. So we need to see what is the router object and how router can really navigate to the required view, which I will create next. So I'm going to create a new view and its controller, and then we will place them properly, and then we will see how can we can navigate to this new view, right? Okay, it's taking so much of time. Let me try one more time running this from scratch. Taking too much of time, or did it failed? Let me check console if at all something is wrong. Yes, you see there is a syntax error, guys. It's causing this problem. So that's why it's not loading. Yeah, I think this tooltip is causing the problem. Let me right now remove this, save this, Come back and refresh. Again, there is an error. You see, there is a parsing error coming in our XML view. Because of that, it's getting red. I don't know. Let me check. UI component parser invalid XML. But why? Maybe. Okay. I think we have this semantic filter, and inside that we only expect a semantic filter action. Okay. But here you see the semantic add action is what we need. So we need, I think, semantic, or maybe this add action. Yeah, you may be right. We did not end this add action. Yeah, this add action we did not end. So let me end it now, save it. Maybe. Yes, it's working. And finally you see this plus button which is coming. If I just focus on this, it just shows me an ad. But right now when I click on this, nothing happens because I don't have an action handler for this. So let's write an action handler on add new to the respective controller for this master view. So I go to the master controller in the controllers tab, master controller, here it is, and I'm just going to write it inside here. So let's write over here and just say function. Yeah. So this is the event handler. Now, one very important thing, XML views are very flexible. Now, if you remember in the last course when we were using JavaScript views, if you forget to declare the event handler in the controller, and if your view is JavaScript view where you mentioned for an event handler name, and you forgot that event handler name declaration in the controller, it will dump. But in case of XML views, it is flexible. If it finds the event handler, fine. Otherwise also it doesn't really cause any issue. So we did not edit this event handler earlier. We added it now, but still my view was loading. So that way the XML views are more flexible as compared to JavaScript view. JavaScript views in other sense are more strict in nature, but XML views are not strict in nature. And now I can write some code. So you can see there is already some code done for some routing, because they are navigating. Whenever user click on an item, they are navigating to the next screen, right? So you can see here there is some code done from the router's point of view to navigate. Or you can also come back and check your master view first and see whenever user select a list item, what is that they're calling. So if you just come and check for list item selection, whenever user choose the list item, what is that happens? It is calling on selection change. That's what it's calling, on selection change. Let me look at the code for on selection change. Here it is, and they are calling then this another method, private method. Any method which starts with underscore is a private method. Show detail they are calling. In show detail they are using this router, this dot get router dot nav2, and here they are passing this router name. Yeah, so this is the router name they are passing, root name they are passing, and basically for this root name object you will actually find an entity in manifest now in the router configuration. So I come to manifest in the code editor and just search. Here it is, here it is, you see guys, here it is. Yeah, so the name of the root is object. Whenever it hits object, the targets which are going to load on the master section, the master view, on the details section, object target. If you look at the object target, it is going to load the detail view in the details section. Yeah, in the details section of the split app control, it's going to load the detail view. So similar to that, I'm going to now create my own root. So let's do that. I come here, right click on the view, say new, and I want to create an SAP UI5 view. Let me just name this view, and the namespace is gonna be same, IBM dot, what was that? I forgot it. Let me just go and check the namespace for my entire project. You can easily find namespace. If you missed any time, go to the component.js. You will find the namespace name there. And you see the first statement here, this one, ibm.tpm. Yeah, that was the namespace which I used. Your component always points to the namespace, ibm tpm. So now I come back, right click, say new, view, and namespace is ibm tpm, and the view name is add product. That's a view which I'm adding, guys. A new view, add product. Say next. Okay, fine. Say finish. It will create a new view. You see, it has also created a controller and it has created a XML view. Now we don't want the controller to be part of this view folder, because if you see the standard also, they have grouped all the controller in one folder and all the views in another folder. So let's cut this controller from here and paste it inside this controller folder. That's the right practice. Yeah, but now since you change the position of it, the path did not change automatically. You got to come to the controller and you see the path still remains the old path where it was placed. It was placed earlier in the view folder, and now you change the path for this, or you change the location for this to the controller folder. You got to change this path. Yeah, this is important step when you're really modifying a custom or introducing a new custom view. Yeah, so that's done. At the same time, the view also refers to the controller. So in this, here you see the controller name to which this view is referring. View is talking to this controller, and here also the path is changed. So controller dot add product. That's what you need to do. Yeah, done. And now you see this, there's this view, and I just say add new product as the title. I'm not putting anything at this point of time inside my view right now. Okay, I'm not putting anything at all right now inside this as of now. My target or my intention is right now to just load that view. Okay, for that, first of all, the first step which you should do is define the routing configuration. So come here and define a new route. Okay, new target for your add new view. So that's what you should do first thing. So come here and say add. That's the name of the target. And then as you can see above, the simple sample targets, it has three properties. Let's use them. View name, view ID, and view level. View level is 2. View name, what view name we created? Add product. A is small. It's case sensitive. What is the ID you want to give? ID add. That's the ID I want to give when the view loads. Okay, I want to give this as the ID of the view. And now on top, I should define the name of the route. I should define a new route for it. So whenever this route is called, my view will be loaded. So I say add, whenever the add, let's say add prod, this is the name of the route I'm defining, and this is the name of the tag name which will be displayed to the user. I say this Spider-Man. So you remember guys, the router concept last course, we defined three major properties. One was pattern, one was name, then control ID and target, target control and target aggregation. Same thing applies here. You just have to say target and what you want to load in master section and what you want to load in the details section. So in details section, I don't want to load object. I want to load this new target called add. Whenever user go to Spider-Man hashtag, or whenever from the code we call this particular route add prod, it is going to load your add view into the details section. Let's call this now from the router object. So come to the controller. Whenever user click on the button, we are going to navigate. So let's use this entire piece of code. And where is our event handler? Newly generated event handler for clicking on add button. So on add was there. Where was it? We have added it, right? Here it is, on add new. Let's see, you reuse the router code. So now just get router nav to add prod. That's my root name. Yeah, that's my name of the router, name of the router root. Okay, I don't want to pass any parameters, so I keep this empty, and this is just for the device mode, guys. Okay, so if you're running it in a phone, the view has to adapt itself automatically, so that's what we are passing to it, a parameter to the nav2 method of the router to adapt it according to the device, yeah, which device we are running. Save this, come back, and let's see if it loads the add new view on click of plus button. That's our requirement. Yeah, so watch the hashtag first. Right now, what's the hashtag? So there is no hashtag, is it? Let me check. I copy this URL and put it in a notepad, and you see hashtag is products app hyphen display slash products. Yeah, that's the hashtag slash products. It's loading the detail page. Let me click on plus button. Nothing happens. It's not loading my view. There is some problem. Let's press F12. Look at the console. Is there any syntax error? And yes, I think you can see IBM TPM web app controller add product.controller. It is not found. System cannot load add product.controller.js. That's the problem why it's not loading our view. But let's look at the router. Did the router did its magic or not? So I copy the URL, come and put it over here, and just to try to see what is that router have done. Did router really change the hashtag or not? So I come, place it, and let's look at the hashtag name, and you see Spider-Man have come in at the end, guys, which means router did its job. Router has changed the hashtag uh, as slash Spiderman for loading the root, which means your router code is correct. Your router is calling the hashtag, it's calling hitting the root, your root is calling the view, router's root is calling the view, and the view is trying to instantiate the controller, and the controller instantiation failed because it could not find this. Now we need to go back and check where we did the mistake. So let's come back and check this. So here if you come to add product view, we are putting IBM TPM web app folder. Here is web app, then controller folder, and then add product. Correct only, right? Now I go inside, let me see. IBM TPM namespace web app folder controller dot add product. It's correct. Why it's not able to load the controller from the controller folder? Did I do some typo? I don't think so. Initialization would cause this. I don't think so. That the cause for failure, because as I can see in the console, it clearly mentioned fail to load IBM TPM web app controller from this not found Orion content. It could not found this. Maybe what I will do, guys, I will close and restart my browser. Maybe that could be the issue. It has, or maybe I just got to restart my Orion server for web IDE. Let me close the Orion. I go back and restart my Orion once again, yeah, for web IDE. So I come here, my web IDE, go inside, restart the Orion server. Okay, cool. It restarted, and then I come back, close everything on the browser side, and just restart my web IDE. I don't think so there's any problem in that. Maybe it's a refresh or cache issue. Okay, maybe it's a cache issue, guys. So if it is correct, let's see. Click on load. Let's see what happens. Now I come here and click on run. It has loaded the view. Click on plus. Still it's not loading. So there is some problem. You see, it is again saying uncaught error, failed to load this, not found, localhost 8080 file Anubhav Orient content. Z app, web app folder, controller. See guys, what it is doing. In web app folder again it's adding web app. I think this is the problem. It's trying to add web app twice. Could be the problem, you see, web app slash web app again and again it's putting. So maybe I'll check this. What's the problem? Why it's adding web app twice? Let's look at other controllers, what they've given the path for other controllers. So if I just come to the app controller and see the path, let's see what they've given for other controllers. Maybe for detail controller we'll see. They have not given any path here. See guys, how they've defined the views, sorry, the controllers. See, all the standard controllers what we see, it is being inheriting from a base controller, which is here. You see, this is a base controller. It's inheriting from base controller, all the controllers. So we should also use the same syntax to define our controller. I think that's the mistake I did. That's why it's not working. So let me use the same syntax. I maybe copy the complete detail view and copy this, replace my complete controller for add product. This is oldest style of defining controller. I paste the detail view completely here, and let me just remove these methods. Okay, so let me remove these methods which were there in the detail view. I don't need them, and just show you the exact structure. This is the exact structure, and let me just also remove the init code. So that's my exact code for this detail, the new controller which I have, following the standard controllers on the same fashion, the way standard controllers are designed. I created the SAP UI define. Now let me tell you guys about this. This is called new SAP scaffolding template. Okay, what is this scaffolding template? Do you remember jquery.sap.require? Anybody? jquery.sap.require, in the last course, what it does, it actually loads the resources in the browser. Yes, it loads the resources. So SAP have now changed this format, and they are actually change it to this kind of format where they mention SAP UI define means load the resources. And now if you remember, in the old way it was jquery.sap.require, and wherever you write that point of time it loads the resource. This thing has created a problem in apps. Why? People started using jquery.sap.require, and then another developer also started using it. Multiple developer use same jquery.sap.require multiple places within one controller, without knowing that if their or others module is loaded or not. So what happened over a period of time, lot of developer who has started coding in one simple controller have got added multiple jquery.sap.require at multiple methods. This has made a big problem for performance of the app, because every time it gets called in the middle of the code, middle of your application code, it starts loading the resources. So SAP has told whatever resources you need which are reusable inside in your controller, you need to declare them at the beginning itself. Everything at the beginning. Okay, that's why this new way have come in, where anyone who is using any resource, whether within the project or something, let's say SAP library, SAPM button or anything, they should always make use of this scaffolding template. They should declare it at the top itself, anything which is globally defined now. Yeah, so we are using one of the controller, which is base controller. You can see here defined which is part of my project itself. So that is one resource. Then JSON model, another resource, and formatter, which is also part of our project in the model folder. Formatter, you see the namespace IBM TPM model folder formatter. Yeah, now one correction here, you see ibm.tpm.controller.detail, it has to change to add product. Now I think it will properly load your add product controller, because we have made it look like standard. We have changed it to look like standard. We made a copy of standard controller and removed everything which was not necessary and just put it as it is. Let's come back, and I'm sure it should do the magic. Maybe I close this and restart the app once again from scratch to see what happens. Now I click on plus button. Still it's not working. Let's press F12 and see what's going wrong. It's still not working. There is some problem. Maybe the cache problem. Let me check it out. No, it's not the cache problem. You see guys, it's still SAPfiori app, web app slash web app controller add product.controller.js. That's the problem. It's not getting the right path. And let's see how it is referenced in the view then. So that could be possibly the problem. So in the detail view, if you go and see how they are loading the detail controller, let me check in the detail view, how are they loading the detail controller? They are also loading it, right? So IBM TPM controller dot detail. How are we loading? IBM TPM controller detail. IBM TPM controller. See, this is the problem. I have added a web app in the middle here. See, remove this, save this. 101% will work now. Let me start the app. So tooth corrections. One correction, I did a typo. Basically, I added another web app in the middle, which has caused the problem. Yeah, let me click on plus button, and boom, there you go. You see it's now navigating to your newly created view, add new product. Yeah, it is loading the add new product, a newly created view. That's the power of creating a new view and loading it through the router. Wow. Yeah, that's how it is work. So now we will add some content to this. So my idea is to basically call a post request and show you a product being created in the real server from a OData request. So first of all, we need to go back and add some couple of fields over here, and then provide a save button. On click of save button, we'll send a request to the server to create some record in the system. Yeah, we'll fire a post request to the server. Let's see how we can really do that. So what I will do now is I'm going to include some fields into it. So how do I do it? Now first important thing is you need to test the post request first. So what I will do is I'll use a Postman plugin. So I'll use a Postman plugin. So what does the Postman plugin does? It helps you to test the OData calls. So let me show you. We can use this Postman plugin to basically make sure that um, can we make a call to this OData to post some records or not? Will it really work? So this is basically a way to test the OData without UI. So I want to make sure that the OData service which we have can receive the post request, and it can perform the post, and it can really create some data records in the system or not. That is what I want to check. Okay, that's why I'm using this post request. Now Deep has the question, is this way of inheriting from base controller to other controller standard way now? Yes. So now also just to clarify this, what SAP have done is they when they design the code, when they create a project from template, they create a base controller. This base controller has lots of base functionality like router initialization, getting the router object, getting the model object, setting the model object, all the base navigating back to the previous screen, all these common functionality which is required again and again and again in all the controllers. So they grouped it in one something called base controller, and this base controller is being inherited by all the other controllers. That's a design what it offers you out of the box. Okay, it's just a design what SAP offering. They're building a nice project which is also reusable, which is following proper reusability concepts. Now, coming back, what I want to do is using this Postman plugin, I will show you whether I can make a post request to this OData service which we have, the developer scenario OData service, and create a new product in the system. So let me show you how can we do that. Close this tab. So guys, before you really get into creating a post request from Fiori app, always it's a good practice to use this Postman plugin and check whether OData service is working or not. Now here you can see it's asking email ID. Let me just register quickly. Okay, cool. And now I will just do a get request first of all. Yes, companies must allow Postman. It's just a REST client. I think every company will allow Postman. There's no problem to it. Yeah, it's just a REST client. And now I come and just open up my OData service, which is here, and just use this URL and make a call in the Postman. Just do a get first of all. Just do a get. Okay, I'm just doing a get, and the type, sorry, in the header, I am putting the, or maybe in here, comma, dollar format equals to JSON is what I'm doing. Yes, we got a JSON, but there's an error. Question mark dollar format is JSON. What is the error? It says logon failed. So when you're trying to call from the Postman, the logon fails. Yeah, you can see the logon is failing because Postman doesn't prompt you for username password. The Chrome browser prompts you for username password, but Postman is not. So you got to add this parameters username and password to the body or to the header of the request. So let's come to authorization. Select here basic authentication and just add my username. So Postman, you have to pass this username now. OCSF. And let me just make a send. And you can see there is a response now coming out. Okay. Now I need to do a post request which creates the data in the system. I want to test that. So I cannot afford to wait my Fiori app to be ready completely. What I need to do now is just try to make use of this REST client, which is a Postman plugin here, and try to simulate a post call to the backend system to just check if my OData works or not. And also with that, I will also get my payload. What is the payload? Payload is nothing but the data which you and the data format in which you want to post the data. So that is what I want to obtain. Because of that, I will use this one simple record which I've got out of multiple record. I got one record, so I pick up this record and now change my get request to a post request, and directly it has to be on to the products entity set. And in this I will just put the body, and the body I'm putting a raw body which is of type JSON, and let me just put all my data over here. So see, I'm putting all my data over here. I'm just keeping the product ID as G, or maybe something which I can just say YY. Maybe there's no product called YY in the system, and I just change the name of the product, say Anubhav's new product from Postman. Yeah, that's what I do. Rest all things I am keeping as it is just to check if I pass this data to the backend in the post request, will it really create the data or not? That's what I want to check. So what I did, I created change to post request, remove the dollar format from the end, come to the body, put the raw data, type as JSON, paste one of the record and change whatever properties you like. Now do a send request. Just do a send request and see what happens. You see there is an error coming called CSRF token field. What is CSRF token? Your gateway server provides an extra feature called CSRF token feature. Especially it is required for logon. It's kind of a logon ticket. Okay. When you did a get request, we passed the logon data. But when you're doing post request, we did not pass the logon data. Why? Because you cannot really do that easily. It relies on token. So token is kind of, when you want to enter inside a club, they will just kind of put a tattoo on your palm. So that's a token which says your entry is authorized to the club. Similar to that here, whenever you're trying to address any post request or update or delete request which modifies something in the system, you need a special token, and that token you can take out from a get request. So what I will show you now, watch carefully, this is very interesting. I will first do a get request and I will fetch a token from the system. I'll tell the system next request which I'm going to give you will be a post request, but for that I need a token. So I will show you how to get a token from a REST based client from a gateway system. So come back to your get request. You can see Postman really stores the history. So here you see the history, and just go to headers and add a header here called x hyphen csrf hyphen token, and in the value put fetch. Okay, fetch. Click on send. Again I'm triggering a get request. Okay, just a get request with xcsrf token and fetch in the value. Click on send. It gets the data. Go to the header. In the header now you can see you've got a csrf token which is a secure token valid for, let's say, 10 or 20 minutes. There is a basis setting for that. They provide. It will be valid for that much of time. You copy this token, come back to your post request, and now here you put in the header before sending your body again x hyphen csrf token, and then just put this token over here. Remaining things remains as it is. Your data, your um, entity set, the raw data, it's of JSON type, and I just added this token over here. Okay, done. Let's do a send again now for post request and see whether this product gets created in the system or not. Do a send now. Let's see if my backend system is working and it's able to create a new data record in the backend or not. Yeah, so I have already sent the request, and this time you see I really did not get any error like invalid token or something, which means I am sure it would have created some data. So let's go back and test if we have got this new product. So I will also pass the key. What was the key we really tried to create the product? Let me see. In the Postman it was YY something, YY 1000. Let's see if it's created YY 1000. I don't think so it'll work because it doesn't have the entity get entity method not implemented yet. Maybe we will just go and check manually. YY1 YY hyphen 1000. It's not there, or how can I really check it now? Because I think it may be just loading few products in the system. Maybe we'll go and check into the database table. Yeah, status 200 not found in Postman. Let me check. We're doing a post request with body. Where is the status 200? I don't see status 200. There's this body. Okay, now I think this request has got an error. See guys, products create entity set is not implemented. Oops, that's the problem. That's the problem. So I think I did not check the body. So response which has come now is different. Earlier response was CSRF token invalid. Now you got this response which says this method is not implemented. Let me check, is there any other service which we can use to create a post? So maybe I just go back to the gateway over here and let me just try to see. Okay, I do have another service over here, service 2. Let me check with this whether we can have it or not. Okay, this has also the products. Does it has? Yes, products are there. Let me do a get for that in the postman. So I come back, just do a get for the another service. So I think the service name is also different. Let me just copy this whole thing and try to do a get of JSON format. Do a get. It doesn't even have data. Okay, so looks like I got to create one. Maybe what I will do is I will enhance this OData service what SAP delivered. Okay, so this is the one which SAP delivered. I'm going to create a new project and enhance this one. So let me just make a copy, make a new project and create my Z OData service for that scenario and say custom OData. Package should be local object. Okay, I can't keep this name, so maybe I just say ZEPM demo developer. It's created, and you all know how to enhance a service. Right click on the data model and choose import from, redefine from OData service gateway. Select that, enter the service name, EPM developer demo scenario SRV, version number 1. Oops, it's not there. EPM star FO. Here it is. Yeah. Say next. Select everything and say finish. So we have redefined a new service now, and I'm going to override the implementation by implementing the create method now. So I just, just say generate. Everything is going to be Z classes. Oh, I think I don't have the developer key. The system, I don't have a developer key. So otherwise I would have generated the create method. I would have overwritten the create functionality and generated the method. So maybe I got to get the developer key by tomorrow. So then only I will be able to do this and implement this. Maybe we will try this in the backend system. Let me check what is the backend system for this. Maybe in the front end system I may not have it, the rights. I may have to go to the backend system for this. EH7 is the front end, and I think ECC on this is no. I think this is the only system I have. Gateway and both ECC installed in a single system. It's not different. So I don't have rights here for this. Unfortunately, I can't show you the scenario, but if at all you have a service which supports the post operation, you can really try it here. And once that is done, once your post works, what you just simply have to do is go back to your post request. You know what is your payload. Simply use this payload as it is and create a post request. So I'll show you writing the code. Probably it may not work, but I'll just show you how to write the code in Web IDE to make a call. So we come back and maybe over here, whenever user click on plus button, I want to write that code in the master controller. So we come to the master controller And whenever user click on add button, let's say I want to write the code. So instead of navigating, see what I was thinking is first we'll navigate to the new view. There we will create some input fields and then a save button. When user click on save button, I am going to fire a request. But since I can't really do it because my OData doesn't provide me such support, what I will do is I'll just show you making a call to that request. So I will just, rather than doing a router navigation, what I will do is I will comment it out. I commented out, and now here I will show you how to create the load. So your payload is gonna be this same thing what you have tried out already in the Postman plugin as it is, whatever you tried out over there as it is, and then come down. That's your payload variable. Why it's behaving like this? Save this. See guys, issues in Web IDE. When I'm putting var payload, it's putting their payload. These are all the minor issues which do exist with Web IDE. I refresh. So it's still not so mature. Uh, and to be very frank, in companies, you can probably use Web IDE for extension points because you do get a good support for extensibility pane. But for pure custom development, I would say still Eclipse should be the choice of tool, which I personally feel is better because I do use Eclipse on day-to-day development rather than using Web IDE because it's much better. Okay, now you see var payload and the payload is there, and now I'll show you how to make a call to OData to create new data. So what you just need to do guys is come and request your OData model. So how do you get your OData model? So if I'll show you going back to manifest.json, let's see how they have declared the OData model. So come down, you will see something called data models. You see data models, and here you see there's blank. Blank means the default data model at application level. So this data model is nothing but your main service, and if you come on top to the main service, you will see this is your OData model. It's an OData model on this particular service. Okay, so this is the OData model you have. It's a default data model. So what you can simply do is, if you can look at this base controller, what it really does is it gives you a method called get model, and it gets you the model object. So you can make use of this and get the OData model object. So just come back here and say var o model equals to this dot get model. That's it. So what happens is in the base controller, you have a get model method. Okay, in the base controller, and that get model method is automatically inherited to the current controller which you are creating, add product. So if you just call get model, it gets you the default model available at the application level. Now you can use this O model and say this is your OData model guys, and then just say create. Create is what used to fire a post request to the backend from Fiori using OData model. In this first parameter is your entity set name, which is products. Second parameter is your payload. And then you will get an object as an output in which you will see a success function, whether the operation was successful, and then an error function. So if the OData call is successful, you get the callback in the success, otherwise you'll get a callback in the error. Why it's showing red? Payload is not defined. Okay, we did not define the payload here. I think I'm writing it wrong place. I should have written it not in this. It should be in the master controller where we define the payload already. Here it is. Yeah. So on click of plus button itself, I'm sending this request to the backend, guys. Yeah. So you see now I did it. So of course we are getting into some error here. So let me just print console.log. It's against web ID policy to print console.log, but just printing it error, at least to show you that you can send such request. And if you have a working solution in your company, you can try such approaches. So success and error. So the moment I click on plus button, I'm not navigating now. I'm just preparing a payload and I'm making a post call to the backend system, sending on this particular um, entity set, the payload which I prepared, and of course if you have input fields, there's no big deal to replace these payload values with the input field data. Just get the input field object dot get value. It gives you the right value, and then you just make a create call and then success and error accordingly. Yeah, save this. Let's go back and check what happens when you click on plus button. There has to be a call which should go to backend. Now you may also ask me, Anubhav, don't we need the the CSRF token in this request? Yeah, because we saw in the Postman plugin we were actually passing it, but don't we need for this? No, because you are actually using a data model object. This is a model object which is nothing but your SAP delivered OData model object, and this OData model object is self-equipped to make such calls without you make use of XCSRF token, because first time when it gets the metadata of the service, it gets the CSRF token also, and it holds it inside. So you don't need to externally or additionally do some extra coding effort to supply the CSRF code token to this model. This is SAP's OData model object, which knows the CSRF token and how to communicate, how to satisfy the gateway security. So you don't need to worry about it. Any external tools like Postman plugin, or if you're writing a Java code to make a call to a OData service in gateway, you have to handle XCSRF tokens separately. Okay, here you don't need. Let's go back and refresh. Now my main intention is to show you the post request, if it is going here from here or not. Press F12, go to network tab, watch carefully here, click on plus button. There is no call going yet. Looks like there's a problem. Why it's not going? See guys, I see something different. See, on click of plus button, it's actually creating the product and it's adding over here. Let me refresh. Does it still persisting it in the backend? I don't think so. No, it's not persisting in the backend, but on click of plus button, it's actually adding it here. Okay, but can anybody tell me why it's being added here? The moment I click on plus button, why it's added here? Anybody? Why do you think? Why it's added here? Because by mistake I've started this application with mock data. So when you click on plus button, it's making a call to OData model to post the data, and your payload is correct. That's why it's posting it to the mock data model, mock server, and mock server is then loading the data and displaying you the results. But when I run this with actual server, you will see a network call also going to the backend system. Right now it was running through the mock server, so it was making a post call to the local model, and the local data was getting created, which was getting displayed. But now let's try to run this with the one with actual server, not with the mock server. Run component with server, and now you see it's asking me username password. That's what I wanted. So my user I will give, so it will now run with the actual OData server, not with the mock server. OCSF user. Let's try. Now you can see it's not running with mock data, it's running with actual data. Press F12, but my add button is not coming. There is some problem. Where is my add button? There is a problem. So Till now we were actually running with mock data itself. So add button is not coming now. I don't know what's the problem. Why my add button is not coming with this? Or maybe we'll just put a add button manually somewhere. Let's try that. Maybe I just go to the master view and try to add the button somewhere. Open with code editor. So where is my button? Here was the filter action. Sort select. It's not displaying the add button, guys, when we are not running with mock server. It's not displaying this add action button. Let me just check. Let me use semantic footer. I'm not sure why it's not showing this. There is indeed a difference with the real server and mock server, because mock server supplies the data differently to the UI the way actual server does. That is the reason you saw a difference between the mock server, because mock server may supply more data, hence the UI will show additional functionality. Okay, I got to check this maybe. Now there is an error. I think there's a parsing error. It's not even loading. Let me check semantic page documentation for standard UI5 apps, or maybe UI5 explode. So basically I will go and check documentation for semantic page, semantic master page, to add a new button at the bottom. So come here, semantic pages. You can see semantic page, semantic master details. This is what standard SAP templates are using. You can see this is how it looks. Can flip and look at the XML code. This is semantic master page. Now here you see they have added the buttons at the bottom. Semantic add action in this is the piece of code, guys, to add an action button. So let me just copy this and paste it here as it is. And I will use an action called on add new. And that action we have already defined over here in master controller on add new. Yeah, save this. Let's try now. So we reference the SAP UI5 Explode documentation for semantic object, semantic master detail page. That's what they have used here to create such a master view. And then now try with the real server data. Still I did not get the button. There is some problem, looks like. Yeah. Okay, maybe guys I'll check this. Why it's not showing me. Oh, okay. See? It's actually adding the button inside, guys. See here. Wow. See, in you click, it's added the button over here. So anything which is added, it's added over here. You see, this is where the button is. Let's press F12 and try now. Click on add button. Watch carefully the network tab. There has to be a request which should go to the backend. Click on add button. And yes, you see, it has sent a request to the backend system. Let me show you guys. There's an error, of course. We know the create entity set method is not implemented. That's what you're getting an error now. So let me just scroll down. You see the error says create entity not implemented, but it has actually sent or a post request to the backend system. And we saw when we ran from the mock server, it actually created the data because your payload is correct. And if you come down here and look at the network call, which it has sent to the backend, look at the header, it has sent a post request on the product's entity set with this as the payload. So that's how you can create a post request to the backend. Maybe in tomorrow's session, I'll go and check if I can find a service which is fully functional, which is supporting the post request, or maybe I will create one for ourselves. Yeah, to show you guys end-to-end post request which actually creates the data in the backend. Yeah, so this way we will see, and then maybe I will also show you the update and delete as well. So all four crude operations we will see, and then the Git repository, and then there are two more topics which are pending. One is workflow integration, if I can show you, and then finally creating a suit KPI tile using SAP Fiori. So that will be the end of our course. So hopefully by next weekend we will be able to close our course. Any questions before we close today's class? How to create a custom app from the scratch with all the crude operation is what is the topic. Any question in today's class? No question? If you want to add a button separately in the footer, yes, you can do it. Let's try that. Let's try. Very good. So let's try. Come back to SAP UI5 Explode and let's see how did they do it. How did they do it? Button separately. I think we should use something called semantic footer, guys. Maybe I'll just go back to documentation. Go to aggregation and you see this is what we have in total. Custom footer content is an aggregation name, okay, which can have multiple buttons at the bottom. So let me try this custom footer content aggregation for the control, for this semantic control. So custom footer content. In this, let me add a button and just me put the text here, Superman, save this, come back, refresh the page. I think it has got the syntax error, hence it's not working. So custom footer content, I think it's part of semantic again. You have to put the semantic namespace, guys. Maybe that's why. And yes, I think that's what you really wanted. You can see the button is being added separately, right? Hope this answer your question. So you got to explore, and that's why you have the help completely available, SAP UI5 Explored, where you can really go and check out the documentation. Even I did not knew the answer, but I know the technique. So we should know the technique. Learn the technique, you can achieve everything, whatever is possible, whatever you've seen so far. Yeah. So maybe I will just check, guys, tomorrow, because this server is quite new. Thanks to Bob for providing this server to me. Uh, I will look at it. Maybe I'll just find some service which supports it, or maybe I just, if you can arrange, Bobby, uh, the the access key for me to enhance the Z services, it will be really nice. Yeah. So maybe then you can talk to the vendor and just get it arranged for the user. So maybe we can enhance, I will enhance the service tomorrow and show you the actual post, delete and update operations for this custom Fiori app. And then we will deploy this custom Fiori app into the system, and we will configure it end to end as a custom tile on the Fiori launchpad along with the roles. That's what we'll see. If not, maybe I'll use tomorrow back to our old server. There this service is actually fully functional. Yeah. And then we'll also talk about the Git repository. Git repository we can't see in that server because there the internet services are not working. I need internet services because I will show you github.com where we use the Git repository from. So for that, internet has to be active in the server, which is not there in the old server. That's why I didn't took it. Okay, so let's meet tomorrow at the same time. We'll see the crude operations and then we'll look at it end to end. Thank you so much. Have a nice day and goodbye. I will post all the training videos of the last class as well.